You stay right there, and let's bring Guy back up. And this is so important now for us to have questions and conversation about the issues that have been raised today. So I'm going to let them take over and moderate this part and take your questions.
We got it nailed right off the bat. No more questions? Please help us. Brian, I think, has a mic. Here's a couple over here, Brian. Man, why don't you go? I can hear you. Her question to us is, what are ways that you can eliminate weeds in your yard without using strong chemicals? I'm going to look over at Melissa and see if she has suggestions.
So if is it in your grass, the weeds, or are they like in the sidewalk? Okay. Yes, that's very hard to. Okay, so I'll speak about weeds just in general a little bit. If you said they're in their grass, but if somebody has weeds that might be in the sidewalk or in the driveway, white vinegar, again, is very useful to spray on it because it will dry it out. But it is not selective, so if you were to use that in the grass, you would want to take a piece of cardboard or paper and sort of shield the grass while you're spraying the dandelion because it's non-selective. There are some products out there that might be at Meijer or some of these other stores that are non-toxic that can kill weeds also, but again, they would be non-selective as well. So you might have to manually pull them out. There are some tools that can help you so that you don't have to necessarily bend over to pull. And a good way is to overseed your lawn with grass seed so that if there's any openings in the grass, that a weed isn't jumping in there and that you're going to encourage the grass to grow. And we could talk for another half an hour just about lawn maintenance. But basically, you want to have your lawn mowed at a higher height so that you're mowing it at 3 inches because that will give the grass the advantage, make it stronger, and that extra inch or so will actually help to shade out any weed seeds and help to prevent them from germinating. And then I think at some point we have to just sort of accept a little bit of non-grass plants in our yard. Yes.
Hi, yeah. Hi, yes, okay. Do you have like the recipes for the various cleaning, non-toxic cleaning recipes available on your website for those who may not be here, or?
Yes. Yes, so if you go to ecocenter.org/LMG, you'll find it, and if you cannot find it, somebody can email me and I'll get it to them directly. It's Ecocenter, ECOCENTER.org/LMG.
I'm curious. What do you suggest a person can do to get the neighbors to come on board? What I mean by that, I'm talking about blocks and blocks of neighbors. What do you suggest? I mean, we started doing this on our own way before the blue cans came. But it's difficult to do when you look down the street and there are no other blue cans but one. And that's ours. So I'd like to know.
So to make sure I'm capturing your question, you're speaking about the recycling and how to increase the rate. Melanie's back there. She can help me out if I go off stray, but we're part of the same team. And actually, this is only the second year that it's been available all over the city. So the very question you're asking is on our mind too. So we have been able to raise some grant money from the state, primarily for our organization, Zero Waste Detroit it's called, in conjunction with the city. So that's one reason we're hosting actually meetings similar to this specifically to talk about recycling. So I would say one thing is you could talk with Melanie and help get something scheduled in your neighborhood where there's a special targeted presentation. If there's a block club or something like that that you're organized by, we'd be happy to come there. And also the material that instructs and lets you know about the story. You could just let us know and we can go door to door and distribute that material. All of those things I think would help build up the momentum.
Yes, in this cleaning recipe, do you have to use distilled water?
No, you don't. It just will help the product to last longer, but it's okay if you just use tap water. It will help the product to last longer if you use distilled water, but it's okay to just use tap water. The question was about mothballs and if they're toxic. Mothballs usually have the active ingredient of naphthalene, which is, yes, very toxic. So you want to try to find ways, you want to make sure and wash your items before storing them. If there's any, even if you say, oh, I wore it once and I didn't spill anything on it, any human oil that might be on it can attract the moths, the clothing moths. So you want to wash it and store it in an airtight container if you possibly can. You may put some cedar wood chips in there, or better yet, if you happen to have a cedar box. So it's a matter of making sure it's as clean as can be and just storing it properly. And if you have it in an attic, the moths cannot tolerate temperatures above 100 degrees, I believe. So if it happens to be in a hot attic, that's just fine.
I was just wondering, is it harmful to freeze or put spring or purified bottled water in the freezer? I remember one time I did that, and I noticed that even before I opened it, when I took it out the freezer and it melted down some, it looked like some science project was floating in there. I don't know what it was.
I've not heard that there's a particular issue about that. There may have been something special about that particular bottle. But while I'm on the topic, Melanie had pointed out about the plastic symbols. I was looking at the bottles here. These are #1 plastic. So they are the kind that can be recycled in our city curbside system.
So, and a good thing to remember about #1 is it's a one-time use. So that's not the kind of bottle that you would want to refill and reuse it again. You want to recycle it. The #2s and the #5s can be reused more easily. It's a sturdier plastic. So the question about freezing, I don't think that there's been the connection between freezing the water and having the plastic leach into the water, but definitely do not heat anything in plastic if you're going to be ingesting it. You don't want to put your food in the microwave in plastic. Or styrofoam, you want to use a plate or paper or something that's not plastic. And definitely don't leave your water bottles in the hot car. Like if you're tasting it and you're drinking it and it feels like you're drinking plastic, then yes, it's leached.
Hi, is it on? Okay. Hi, this is Melanie. I'm just following up on, there was a question about the, expanding the recycling program. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities. We're looking for you to help us. So if you have an idea, if you are part of a block club or a church, we want to come to you and present and sign people up for free bins. So if you feel that, your neighbors aren't getting involved, but you know that they show up at certain events or certain meetings, or now that it's the summer, there's a lot of fun festivals and outdoor events going on, please just get in contact with us. Like I mentioned, our contact information is on the flyer that I have over there, and so if you have creative ideas, let us know and we'll come to you.
There's a question over
many lines that say natural or non-toxic, or are those better? Cleaning products?
That's a great question.
It is a very good question. There's a lot of kind of misleading labels out there, whether you're looking at food or cleaning products. If the word natural doesn't have any meaning, in the regulatory world, so any product could put that word on their label. So you really have to dive a little deeper and research maybe on the company's website to see what do they mean by natural. What are they saying is their version of natural. So, and maybe it could be a very good product, but I think you just have to take the next step and find out what does that term mean for them. And again, look for caution, warning, or danger. Caution is your least toxic category of cleaners. And some of the more natural cleaners are actually listing their ingredients on the backside, so you can look for that too.
Your question's reminding me of a theme I did want to bring out, which is about inventing molecules, right? That in our business world, thousands of new chemicals are invented and created. It's basically like an architectural process. And so one of the policy initiatives that DWJ's been a champion of is what's called green chemistry. And so if you hear anything about that or have an opportunity to express an opinion about green chemistry, this is something that gets at what you're talking about, because the words natural are very broad, and so it could be something that's a chemical that has carbon in it, so it would be considered natural, but the way the carbon atoms are combined may still have a very toxic impact. So in simple terms, green chemistry is about designing new chemicals with the vision of understanding how toxic or how non-toxic they can be once they're actually released and used widely. So this is something, there is actually a Green Chemistry Council in Michigan, and there's some initiatives around that we are hoping can move toward safer products of all kinds.
I work for the Ecology Center. We were a founding member of the Green Chemistry Roundtable as well. So it's very exciting.
Go ahead. So we're, the question is about using mothballs to repel the small yard animals, right, like squirrels and so forth. And what I learned when I was doing my first organic gardening is that, yes, in fact, they can repel like rabbits and squirrels and whatnot. On the other hand, there are other safer alternatives like bone meal, things that basically give off a fragrance that we can't detect but are like a warning to the animals. So, gosh, I hate to give bad information on the title of stores, but there's a couple of stores in the city that basically they provide supplies for landscaping and gardening, and you can get advice about that from them.
Detroit Farm and Garden.
Detroit Farm and Garden is one in particular. Detroit Farm and Garden.
They're in Southwest.
Southwest Detroit.
Do you do any other county, like Oakland County and other counties?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear it.
Do you do any other county, like Oakland,
Do
Macomb?
we work in other counties?
Yes.
We work statewide on specific legal issues. In terms of the products, that's sometimes it's a federal level of rulemaking that goes on about the labeling and whatnot. So we are active on those things as well.
All right, we've got time for one more question.
Right behind you.
Like your fruits and vegetables, what do you suggest to use to wash them off with all the different pesticides and stuff in them?
We'll double team it. Water.
Ordinarily, you just use water, but we're getting so many different pesticides on the fruits and vegetables.
So usually it's, if you think in terms of how Melissa was describing cleaning your hands earlier, the same is useful, I would say, for the food, right? Simple is good.
I'm sorry, but I didn't understand what.
Oh, please.
So I think just being thorough with your washing is what Guy is saying, and to do with, rub. I like to make sure and rub an apple as I'm washing it and get right in the core, where the stem is, because if the apple is on the tree like that and the pesticides are sprayed on it, they will sort of settle in that stem area. So I just want to wash the whole thing thoroughly before eating it. And that's a very good practice, but at the same time, it's not going to remove all of the pesticides. We didn't mention that the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, each year they compile USDA data about pesticides on produce. So the United States Department of Agriculture, by law, has to test produce for pesticide residues. And they are supposed to be getting this information out to consumers, but they don't. They simply do the testing. And so it takes a third party, EWG, to actually get that information out there. But so when they test the produce, they are washing and preparing it before they test it. And so you can go on EWG.org. I believe it's Food News, and they release every year what the findings are. And they'll have the Dirty Dozen, which has the produce that has the highest amount of pesticides on it after it's been washed and prepared. And then they have the Clean 15, which are the least amount. And generally, in your Dirty Dozen, you're going to have apples, cherries, blueberries, celery, spinach. Those are some of the ones that are always in there. So if you can manage to buy those organically, you'll be really reducing the pesticide intake that you might be having on your food, whereas some of the Clean 15 might be mangoes, pineapple, broccoli, bananas, some of those items, which you might not need to spend the extra $1 to buy organic on, say, onions, because they're not a product that is generally heavy in pesticides. So you want to maybe save that $1 and spend it on trying to find some organic apples instead. So that's a helpful resource.
Okay, everybody give one more round of applause for our speakers.